welcome, and to Marcia for her. The floor is to her to present her work.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's very warm. It's my heart to see how many people have come from all over, both from Los Angeles, San Francisco, family, friends, all over the Pacific community who stayed late. We've been here all weekend and stayed late, so thank you for being here. So the topic is depth perspectives on finding meaning in later life. And to start the whole presentation, I kind of wanted to set a little bit of a mood. And I think aging has been looked at from many different perspectives, but poets and spiritual writers have also said quite a bit. And John O'Donoghue has spoken beautifully about aging. He speaks in a beautiful Irish brogue, and so I was going to ask Kira if she would mind reading it for us.
Of course, Marcia. Within the harvest circle, you're able to gather lost moments and experiences. Bring them together and hold them as one. In actual fact, if you can come to see aging, not as the demise of your body, but as the harvest of your soul, you will learn that aging can be a time of great strength, poise, and confidence.
Thank you. So here at Pacifica, where we study depth psychology, everything has meaning. And so I wanted to try to explain what my calling was to this topic. Actually, I started my journey here at Pacifica after my youngest of 5 children went off to college, and I kind of said, oh, so now what happens? So I signed up for the PsyD program. And part of that program is starting therapy also. Although I've been in therapy in my 20s, I started therapy once again with a Jungian analyst. And I kind of went in and said, you know, I was in therapy in my 20s, but now what? Like, can you really teach an old dog new tricks? And he kind of looked at me and said, oh, you really don't understand this stage of life, do you? This is the second half of life. So he opened my eyes to that kind of whole perspective. And I realized that telescoping out that this is not only my own personal life stage, but there are many, many people going through this. And it would be an important thing to try to research and understand. So some people have called this stage the silver tsunami because there are so many older adults now. The life expectancy in 1935 was 61.7 years old. But it's expected by mid-century 2050 that it will be 82 years. Further, there's more than twice the number of older adults expected in 2030, which will be 72.1 million people. And they're expected to have by 2050, 88.5 million older adults. So I think it behooves society to try to understand what is this life stage about? How can people feel fulfilled and find meaning throughout the lifespan? A lot of the research that's done is done under this construct of successful aging. And the way they define successful aging is a way to hold off disabilities and retain activities of daily living and maintain good cognitive functioning. The problem is that the idea of aging well means that you actually don't age. So I realize that I'm actually on the wrong PowerPoint, but okay. I wanted to look at aging in a whole different way. I wanted to look at it from what people's inner resources are really all about. And so the first person I looked to was towards Frankel, who spoke about how adults people have meaning and purpose, like a spiritual need for meaning and purpose throughout life, and that actually gets them through some of the toughest times. Erik Erikson has the 7th stage of development of generativity versus stagnation, and looking out for future generations and leaving a legacy. And Jung spoke about the second half of life, individuation, kind of trying to be whole and more balanced, going beyond the ego and trying to tap into the personal and collective unconscious. So this study, I was interested in looking at the process by which individuals create and maintain meaning in their lives post-midlife. And so the research question was, how does that happen? And to try to explore that, I used a methodology called interpretive phenomenological analysis, and I will call it IPA from now on. And IPA was developed by Jonathan Smith in the 1990s. It was based on Husserl's theory of phenomenology. IPA kind of recognizes the engagement that the researcher has with the participants' words and the ability to interpret different meanings, and helps the researcher kind of look into the person's inner processes. It's kind of the perfect vehicle to try to understand how people explore their personal and social world. It's also a perfect vehicle for people who are studying to be clinicians, because words are so important to us and we like to look into different meanings. So for my study, I had a small homogeneous sample, 6 women between the ages of 63 and 73. They were all married between 36 to 50 years. They're all mothers. They're all grandmothers. And the inclusion criteria was that they were verbal, they were reflective, and they're interested in the subject of meaning making. Some of them were retired, some of them were still working. There were 3 educators, 1 doctor, an executive director of a nonprofit agency, and a professional volunteer. So my data collection was face-to-face interviews. They had a semi-structured flavor of conversation, really. I went to people's homes or their offices. And when I saw them, I taped the interviews, and then I had them transcribed. Then I did the IP stages of analysis. So there was an immersion into the text line by line, then kind of looking for themes over all the different interviews, doing the labeling, the descriptive labels, and then kind of organizing them into superordinate themes and subthemes. So don't try to go too crazy reading all this, because I'm really going to go through this one by one. But what I came up with is 4 superordinate themes: existential pursuits, affirmation of life, human relationships, and resiliency. And then there were 4 sub-themes under each of those superordinate themes. So like a total of 16 themes. The first theme was existential questions. I found that the participants were looking beyond what they had focused on when they were younger, which was building family, building career, and entertain. And they were starting to entertain more philosophical questions and thoughts about their lives. So one woman who I met with in her early 70s, when I came to see her, she kind of gave me this whole overview, because I told people what I was coming to interview them for before. She gave me kind of a whole overview of what she saw, and it kind of gave you an idea of her thinking.
Well, the worst decades in my life were supposed to be the best. I mean, teen years, my 20s, even early 30s were times of tremendous stress. I realize now it's because I was creating my life. You know, I didn't know. I didn't know what it would be. There was tremendous anxiety and need to define myself and to prove myself and to make these crucial life decisions. Everything depended on these crucial life decisions. Now it's much better. Much, much better. I mean, those decisions are in the past. I mean, they've been made and there's no changing it. Well, how do you find meaning At this point in your life, you see the arc of your life. You could tell the story of your life. Whereas the early years, you're so busy writing it that you can't see it.
So the first sub-theme in this category was capitalizing on self-understanding. The participants seemed to really want to understand themselves better and use that kind of as a launching pad to catapult into areas that had been untapped potential for themselves. And here's another one. You should know these are not their voices, actually, but these are their words.
Well, I'm not as concerned about what people think about me. I don't care what the community thinks, what the neighbors think, you know. I want to do what I want to do. Much more selfish. I feel selfish. My women's group met yesterday and we talked about this. They said that that's not selfishness. That's self-awareness and self-actualization.
The next something was considering death. So these women were seeing death they weren't so scared about it. They weren't as worried as much as they saw it as kind of a deadline and a motivator to grab more of life. This is what was said by one woman.
My husband's 76, I'm 73. We could die tomorrow. I'm not afraid of his dying. I'm not afraid of my dying. It makes me anxious to get done what I want to get done, because there's a deadline. You've got a deadline. You get energized right before a deadline, right?
And then another sub-theme under this existential pursuits was fostering a spiritual connection. There were kind of three groupings of ideas here. Some women were involved in religious institutions. Some women, kind of their activities that they had chosen had some kind of spiritual aspect to them that was really fulfilling. And then there were some who were kind of jealous that they didn't have that in their lives.
You can see her work and her heart and her, just the love and energy that she puts into her work. So I feel like to me it's a celebration of so many pieces, including this one. So with that, on behalf of the committee, if you're all ready, and on behalf of Pacifica Graduate Institute, I would like to congratulate Marcia Nimmer on completing her dissertation, and we have a certificate of completion that you have to mark it. We also have organic orchard and garden, and these are from our own organic orchard and garden that are in this drought are still growing. So with that and we have a medallion that marks kind of this is a big completion. So this ritual in the stage, and so let me